Thank you for joining us on the Ultimate Leadership Podcast. And here's your host, Chris Cebollero.
Well, once again, it's time for the Ultimate Leadership Podcast. I got to tell you, it's a great day. And anytime we have the opportunity to talk about leadership, it's always great to share that expertise. And I appreciate you allowing me to join you on your professional development journey. When we think about growing organizations, it's really our role as leaders to make sure that we do the very best that we can. We need to be able to, use our critical thinking skills and use our problem solving skills and make certain that as things happen in an organization, we're able to deal with those things. And, sometimes we're looking at trends and sometimes we're looking at data. Sometimes it's important that we have the foresight and the conceptualization to say, you know what, this could turn into a problem. How are we going to deal with this? But I got to tell you, we have a really great guest today, and it's one of my favorite authors, and he's now put out his 7th book. It's called The Anticipatory Organization, Turning Disruption and Change into an Opportunity and Advantage. And we are going to be joined by Daniel Burrus. He's considered to be one of the world's leading technology forecasters and innovation experts. Over the past 30 years, he's established a worldwide reputation for his exceptional record of accurately predicting the future of technical changes and its direct impact on the business world. And we are honored to have Daniel Burrus with us. Daniel, I want to thank you for joining us on the Ultimate Leadership Podcast.
Hey, it's really my pleasure. Thank you.
So, one of the things I want to think about, and I always ask authors this first, is, the Anticipatory Organization. What was the catalyst for writing this book, and how did you come up with the title?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I developed, based on my 35 years of working with companies, both entrepreneurial, mid-size, as well as some of the very largest companies around the world using my anticipatory methodologies, I decided to put this into a learning system. So I developed a leadership learning system about 2 years ago. It's a video-based learning system called the Anticipatory Organization, and it became a Product of the Year award winner. It's being used at the Pentagon for leadership training. It's being used by some of the largest companies in the world, and you know what? The result I've been getting has exceeded my expectations as well as every single client. And I thought, this has to be a book. So that is how the book came out. And of course, the alternative to being an anticipatory organization or an anticipatory leader is to be a reactionary one. And reacting quickly, which is agility, is working less every day as the pace of change increases. So we need something better, and that's what this book is about.
Yeah, and as I talked about up in the beginning, we really need to, as leaders, this is our business, whatever business we're in, and why we got the position as leaders is that we should know our business. And as you mentioned, being reactionary to those challenges really kind of puts you at a disadvantage. So it's really great that we have this book to kind of guide us in the sense of, kind of learning this process. And in your book, you talk about the biggest missing competency. Can you share what that is?
Yes, well, we're really good at execution. As a matter of fact, many people think execution of strategy is the holy grail. Others might think it is being agile. But remember, reacting to problems and digital disruptions, no matter how agile you or your organization are, is no longer good enough because we're moving along now at a technology-driven pace that is, frankly, exponential in its rate. And by the way, if you're going exponentially fast in the wrong direction, you can get into trouble exponentially faster. So we need to have some kind of way of getting, number one, a direction finder going here. And secondly, agility. Let's put it this way. A lot of people are doing agile innovation, for example, and which is another way of saying that is reactive innovation, reacting quickly to a disruption. But the subtitle of the book is Turning Disruption and Change into Opportunity Advantage. By using the methodology I teach in the book, you can see disruptions before they disrupt, allowing you to have the choice to be the disruptor or the disrupted. It allows you to identify problems that you or your customers are going to have before they have them accurately and pre-solve them so you don't have them in the first place. And better yet, to see game-changing opportunities that you can use to base your innovation, and those opportunities have low risk. And the reason is they're based on certainty by hard trends. They're going to happen anyway. If you don't do them, someone else will.
Yeah, and there are people out there that may not be using data or may not be using trends. And I know in the book, and you just mentioned hard trends will happen. Could you give us a little background about what that is?
Well, first of all, we're going to be spending the rest of our life, we're going to be making all of our future money in the future. It's not in the past. It's what's up ahead of us. And most of us don't spend much time looking into the future or looking at trends because some trends happen and some trends don't. Matter of fact, there's no shortage of trends. The problem, again, is which ones will happen. Well, based on the research I've done, what I've done is come up with a way that helps companies to get clarity, and that is there's really two types of trends. So whenever you hear a trend anymore, you can fit them into one of these two places. The hard trends, as I mentioned earlier, they are based on future facts. They will happen. And what they provide you is certainty in a seemingly uncertain world. And business strategy, as well as personal strategy, based on certainty has low risk. And by the way, if it's based on uncertainty, it has high risk. The other kind of trend is a soft trend. And a soft trend is an assumption. Often, though, leaders at all levels think that an assumption is a fact. In other words, they have an assumption about the future and they are treating it as if it was a fact, but in reality, it's got much more risk to it. It's actually an assumption. So the thing I like about soft trends, if you don't like them, you can change them. The things I like about hard trends is you can see them coming, and that allows you to have some choices and to innovate with much lower risk.
So does it put us at a disadvantage if, I like the hard trends and we know, and, that's where that foresight comes in. But if we react to soft trends, does it hurt us or hurt our organization in any way?
Well, no. You know what? And now you're bringing up the subject of agility. And I think of it as a two-sided coin. You can't predict everything. Well, of course you can't. That means you better be agile. You better be able to react fast to those things you couldn't see. What I'm bringing, the new competency, is the other side of the coin, and that is how much you can see and pre-act on before the future event. And as I said, as change is going faster, it's better to get ahead of it than to languish behind it.
Right.
Let me just give you a couple of categories of hard trends so
please.
that people can understand, that this isn't really that hard. Everyone listening, you can do this. So let me share this with you. 3 categories. It's not that bad. First one, demographics. For example, in this country, we've got 78 million baby boomers, and it's a hard trend, certainty, that they're going to get older. They're not going to get younger all of a sudden. They're going to continue to get older. And that may seem simple to you, but when you combine that to predicting problems so you can pre-solve them and predicting opportunities, wow, you've got something. Let me give you a quick example so everybody sees what I'm talking about in this show. And that is, again, we've got 78 million people getting older. And a lot of us like to go fishing. We like to go boating. And as you get older, maybe you have a mom or a dad or a grandma or a grandpa like this. As you get older, it gets kind of hard to launch the trailer, the boat trailer. So why don't we create the easy launch trailer for seniors? Now, would that have a built-in, definable growing market every year? The answer is, well, yes. And would if you designed it well, would you know which countries to export it to and which ones to avoid? Well, absolutely. For example, Japan has an aging population. That's a perfect one to sell that in. And what about Istanbul? Well, the average age there is 28, so I don't think I'm going to go there. Let me give you one more quick one on that, just so that you can see the power of hard trends and how you can uncover opportunities. And that is, and we've got, again, a lot of people getting older. How about we create a smart watch for seniors, 80 years old and older? Now, that doesn't exist right now, but let's just describe it a minute. Would they be buying it? No, they're not going to buy a smartwatch. The people who are going to buy it is the listeners. You're going to buy it for them. And all of those little watches, even today, have a little chip in it that tells you motion. So if 90-year-old grandma's watch rapidly moves 4 feet, what happened to grandma? Well, she probably fell. Does grandma need to know that? She already does. She's on the floor. The person that needs to know it is you.
Right.
Yeah, you're the one who needs to know it if it's your grandma. And let's say grandpa's starting to get absent-minded and he might like to take walks, but he gets lost and can't find his way home. All he's got to do is ask his watch, how do I get home? And it'll tell him. User interface is easy. Talk to it, it talks to you. In other words, are we going to have watches like that don't exist right now? Do you think we're not going to see it, or do you think we're going to see watches that do those kinds of things and much more?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's really where the future is. We're trying to fix problems that we know are happening now, so I have to agree with you.
Well, so the key is you can innovate around these very easily. Remember I said there were 3 categories. And by the way, a lot of the people that have companies listening to this program, you've got a lot of people that are going to be predictably retiring, and they're going to be taking a lot of their knowledge and their experience with them, unless you start capturing that and creating a knowledge base and even a wisdom base from of all those people before they leave. By the way, in the book, I talk about how to do that. The second of the 3 hard trend categories is technology. And you might think, well, that's not predictable, but actually it's amazingly predictable. This is, as you said, book number 7. And if you look back at my past books, I've been able to nail it extremely well. But the reason I wrote this book is I want you to be that good at it. That's why I'm giving you how to do it. So when it comes to technology, like we've got 4G wireless, some of you have been reading about 5G wireless. Well, is that it? Or could you predict what will be next? The answer is, of course, it'll be 6G followed by 7G. We even know how powerful they will be. Well, is the cloud getting full? Are we going to continue to put more data in the cloud? And of course, the cloud's not getting full. We're putting more up there. That's not a fad. That's a hard trend that's going to continue to grow. Just like we can virtualize services and even virtualize products. So virtualization is a hard trend. Mobility, whether it's something that you're wearing or smartphones getting smarter, it's amazing how amazingly predictable all of that is. And the third category is, believe it or not, government regulation. And you might think, whoa, I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, I was just thinking
it is. Yeah, well, let's just give you an example so you can see how this works.
Sure.
You see, when a government regulation, a law, comes into play, we all look at that regulation, and here's what most of us do. We look at all the things we don't like. But one of the principles I teach in the book is to do the opposite and start with all of the things you do like. And let me show you exactly how this works. In California in January, there were a little over 1,000 new laws that went into place just in California. And one of those laws said, remember, this is a real law, within 3 years, all kindergartners and first graders in the state of California, half of their reading in school has to be nonfiction. And by the way, right now, all of their reading is fiction. The little engine that could is fiction. So they got 3 years to do that. Now, when you hear things like that, I know what our listeners are thinking. They're thinking, why in the world would they do that? What are they doing? Don't they have something more important to do? And you get all upset. But the opposite is to look for opportunities. 28-year-old teacher in San Diego made 3 phone calls. She called the San Diego School District, the Los Angeles School District, the San Francisco School District, and said, hey, you've got 3 years to get half of those books for those little kids to be nonfiction. If I provided those books, would you be interested? And they said, well, yeah, we didn't know how we were going to do that. To make a long story short, they underwrote her entire company and became a guaranteed customer, and she didn't have to go on Shark Tank. Why? Because right. She was using the principles that I'm talking about in this book.
Right.
So you can innovate with low risk and do amazing things when the opportunities in the near future become visible to you. That's why I want us to be anticipatory leaders, not just reactionary.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that people will say all the time. Why didn't I think of that idea? Well, right now, if you're anticipatory, you can kind of think about that, of what that's going to look like in the future. But I think my next question, Daniel, kind of goes to this. When we think about disruption or we think about change, not only in business, but in our careers, sometimes leaders are a little bit fearful of that process. How do we become better at avoiding these disruptions or kind of going with the flow of these disruptions?
Well, you know what? You asked a very good question. Thank you for that. First of all, one of the reasons we're afraid of disruption is because the only way we've ever experienced disruption is it hitting us and messing us up. It messes our careers up, disrupts it. It messes our products up, our services up, our customers up, and messes things up. We don't like disruption. And what I'm saying is, when you can learn to see disruption before it disrupts, you're going to end up liking disruption because you're going to become the disruptor. Hey, look, years ago, did somebody say, hey, let's keep digital photography a secret from Kodak? No, that was out there for them to see. They treated it as a soft trend. Oops, that was a hard trend. Should have known the difference. You wouldn't have had to lose all those billions of dollars. So knowing the difference between those two things can make all of the difference. The second thing about the fear that leaders have about change and disruption is that we think that people don't like change, is that nobody likes change, which is false. First of all, humans are born loving change. Babies cry until you change them. They love rapid change.
Yeah.
Why do people take vacations? Well, because we need a change. In other words, not all change is negative. So what's the bad kind of change? Let's get this straight here. Some change is good. The bad kind of change is the kind of change that catches you by surprise. You didn't see it coming, and you know what? You're not going to like that. But most of those changes you could have seen. For example, when do people get burglar alarms?
After they've been burglarized.
After getting robbed.
Yeah, exactly.
When do people change their password from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? After getting hacked.
Right.
When do people start exercising? When the doctor says, hey, you're huge. You got to stand up and walk around every now and then. It's kind of like, gee, I never looked in the mirror and noticed. In other words, you know what? There are ways that you can see those things coming. And again, I've got a methodology that works in this book. And, I'm so excited about this. I mentioned it before we started this interview. I'm so excited about what this can do for our leaders that are listening to this. I'm not going to sell you this book right now. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give it to you. Now, you can go to Amazon and go to the Anticipatory Organization and buy it, and no problem. But because you're listening to this show right now, if you go to theaobook.com, you can get the book for free. And now look, I'm actually losing money for every one of your listeners that's going to do this. I don't care. I want you to get the book and discover how amazing it is. And I just took away one of your biggest problems in getting it. You had to spend money.
That's awesome. And I got to tell you what a great gift that is to the listeners. And I got to tell you, I've been a big fan. I think I read your book, Flash Foresight. It might have been 2012, 2013, but just the insight that it had and just the, ability it gave you to kind of think about having foresight. That was one of the skills that I didn't have back then, which was really kind of giving me the opportunity to kind of see. I got to tell you, I think you got a bestseller on your hands, and I'm just excited that you had the opportunity to come and join us here on the Ultimate Leadership Podcast.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know that in pre-sales of the book, because it's just going on sale this week, and the pre-sales had already reached #1 in hot new books on Amazon.
Oh, awesome.
And it was just based on pre-sales. So I'm very happy about it. I think it's off to a great start because most of us are realizing putting out fires, crisis management, reacting to things that have already happened is not working that good. We need something better. And believe me, like I said, I believe that it'll help you so much. Hey, I'm going to give it to you.
And that's really awesome. So if folks want to engage with you, I know you do some speaking. If they want to have you come and speak to their organizations, is there a way they can get in touch?
Sure. I do speaking and I do consulting as well. And you could go to Burrus, BURRUS.com, and find out much more. I also, you could go to social media, just type in Daniel Burrus on any of those platforms, especially LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, about 2 weeks ago, I passed the 1 million follower mark on LinkedIn. It's only about 30 people in the world that are that high. And I think it's because I give people a lot of value. And most of those people are leaders. So, hey, follow me on LinkedIn if you're a LinkedIn member, and you'll get a lot of free insights there as well.
Awesome. And Daniel Burrus, I got to tell you, I'm excited for this new book. Can't wait to read it all the way through, and promises you'll come back again so we're able to tap into your experience and expertise.
I'd love to come back to your show, so thank you for the invitation. Let's do that.
And for everybody out there, sometimes you've got to be able to look at the way that the organization's going and look at the trends and make sure that you can kind of figure out what's going to be happening. Do you have the foresight? Are you able to anticipate? And that's really what the organizations of tomorrow are going to need to have. I got to tell you, it was great to chat with you, and I look forward to chatting with you again real soon.
Thank you for joining us. The Ultimate Leadership Podcast is a production of ChrisSubbolero.com. You can interact with us by email at ultimateleadership16@gmail.com. All rights reserved.